The video was still playing on my laptop screen when I heard Marcus's voice behind me, cocky, entitled, completely oblivious to what I'd just discovered. "Hey there, champ. Didn't expect to see you here this early." I closed the laptop with deliberate calm. The image of my wife Serena writhing beneath this man in our guest bedroom still burned into my retinas. The nanny cam I'd installed to monitor our newborn's sleep patterns had captured far more than midnight feedings. I turned around slowly, watching Marcus stretch his ridiculous biceps in our kitchen like he owned the place, wearing nothing but gym shorts and that insufferable smirk that had apparently charmed my wife of 12 years. "Early bird catches the worm, right?" I said, my voice steady despite the tsunami of rage building in my chest. "My name is Daniel Hartwell. I'm 42 years old, an accountant who specializes in corporate fraud investigations. I've spent the last 18 years of my career following paper trails that others thought were buried, finding patterns in chaos, and exposing lies that people believed were perfectly hidden. I live by a simple philosophy. Everyone leaves breadcrumbs, and I'm exceptionally good at following them to their source. 3 months ago, if you'd told me I'd be sitting in my own kitchen, watching my wife's lover make himself a protein shake with ingredients from my refrigerator, I would have laughed. Not because I thought my marriage was perfect, no marriage is, but because I believed Serena and I had built something solid, something worth protecting. Before we go any further, welcome back to Revenge Stories with Kyle, and if this is your first time watching any of our videos, we encourage you to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us, and it motivates us to continue creating even more powerful stories for you. So stick with us to the very end, and if this story moves you, drop your comments and share with a friend. Now, let's dive back in. We lived in Westfield, New Jersey, in a colonial that we'd renovated room by room over the past decade. I worked from my home office most days, which gave me flexibility when our daughter Emma was born 8 months ago. Serena had struggled with postpartum depression, and I'd suggested she find something physical to help her feel like herself again. The irony wasn't lost on me now. Serena and I met in college at Rutgers. She was studying marketing, I was deep in my accounting degree, and somehow we found each other in the library during finals week of our junior year. She was crying over her statistics homework, and I offered to help. That night turned into 3 hours of tutoring, which turned into coffee the next morning, which turned into 13 years together. I won't pretend those years were all perfect. We'd weathered her father's death, 2 miscarriages before Emma, and my mother's long battle with Alzheimer's. But we'd always been a team. When Serena's marketing firm downsized and she lost her job, I worked extra hours to keep us afloat. When my dad had his heart attack, she flew to Phoenix and stayed with him for 2 weeks while I wrapped up a major case. After Emma was born, things got complicated. Serena struggled to adjust to motherhood in ways neither of us expected. She felt trapped, isolated, like she had lost herself completely. The woman who used to run half marathons and plan spontaneous weekend trips to the Poconos suddenly couldn't find the energy to shower some days. "I need to feel strong again," she told me one evening, sitting on our bed in her robe, staring at Emma sleeping in the bassinet. "I need to feel like me." So I researched personal trainers in our area. I read reviews, checked certifications, even ran background checks. Occupational hazard. Marcus Dela Cruz came highly recommended. Former college football player turned certified trainer specializing in postpartum fitness recovery. Clean record, solid references, affordable rates. I hired him to save my marriage. The first session was in our garage, which I'd helped convert into a home gym during the pandemic. Marcus arrived with equipment, a smile that could sell toothpaste, and what I'd later recognize as predatory confidence. He was everything I wasn't, 6'4" to my 5'9", built like a linebacker, and that easy charm that makes people trust him immediately. "Your wife's lucky to have such a supportive husband," he told me that first day, shaking my hand with a grip that felt like a statement. "Most guys wouldn't invest in their woman like this." I should have heard the calculation in that compliment, but I was focused on Serena. For the first time in months, she looked excited about something. She'd bought new workout clothes, tied her hair back with purpose, and there was a light in her eyes I hadn't seen since before Emma was born. The changes started subtly. Serena began showering before I got home from client meetings instead of after her workouts. She started doing her makeup for training sessions, just to feel put together, she said. She bought new sports bras that seemed more suited for fashion magazines than functional fitness. Then came the phone calls. Marcus would call to check on her progress between sessions, text messages about nutrition plans that required long responses. The sessions themselves grew longer, 90 minutes, then 2 hours, then sometimes she'd grab lunch with him afterward to discuss her fitness goals. I told myself it was working. Serena was happier, more confident, engaging with Emma more naturally. She'd found her strengths again, just like she wanted. The fact that it came with a side of obvious infatuation with her trainer felt like a small price to pay. Until 3 weeks ago, when I came home from a client meeting that ended early and heard sounds from our guest bedroom that made my blood freeze. I stood in our hallway listening to my wife of 12 years moaning another man's name, and something inside me went very, very quiet. Not angry, not yet. Quiet in the way an accountant gets quiet when they find the first discrepancy in a ledger that's supposed to be clean. I could have burst in, could have screamed, thrown punches, demanded explanations. Instead, I went to my office and ordered a nanny cam that looked like a picture frame. The same protective instinct that made me install security measures for Emma's safety now served a different purpose entirely. For 3 weeks, I collected evidence. Video footage, text message records, credit card statements showing charges for lingerie I'd never seen her wear, hotel receipts for training conferences that didn't exist. Marcus wasn't just sleeping with my wife, he was systematically dismantling my marriage while taking my money to do it. The footage was devastating in its intimacy. Not just the physical betrayal, but the emotional one. Watching Serena laugh at Marcus's jokes with a brightness she hadn't shown me in years. Listening to her criticize my parenting, my appearance, my career, turning our private struggles into entertainment for her lover. "Daniel's so boring," she said in one video, tracing circles on Marcus's chest while Emma slept 15 feet away. "He thinks being a good provider makes up for having no passion, no fire. Some men just don't know how to handle a woman like you." And I watched him kiss the mother of my child while she agreed with every word. The betrayal was complete, but it was Marcus's words in that final video that sealed his fate. "Don't worry about him finding out, babe. Even if he did, what's he gonna do? Guy like that doesn't have the balls to fight for anything. He'll just calculate his way out of the problem like he does everything else." They were right about one thing. I would calculate my way out. But they'd vastly underestimated what I was calculating toward. Sitting in my kitchen that morning, watching Marcus flex and preen while making his post-workout smoothie, I felt that familiar forensic calm settle over me. This was just another case now. Another fraud to expose, another truth to uncover. "You know," Marcus said, leaning against my granite countertop like he belonged there, "Serena's been talking about you a lot lately." "Has she?" I kept my voice neutral, professional. "Yeah, man, she's worried about you. Says you've been distant, disconnected, not really present for her or the baby." He took a long drink of his smoothie, studying me over the rim. "Marriage is work, you know. Can't just coast on autopilot and expect everything to stay perfect." The audacity was breathtaking. Here was a man who'd spent weeks systematically seducing my wife, using my own home as his personal brothel, and now he was giving me marriage advice? Put yourself in my shoes for a moment. You're standing in your own kitchen, watching this muscle-bound fraud lecture you about how to be a real man while he's literally destroying your family behind your back. What would you do in this situation? Would you confront Marcus right there in the kitchen? Would you immediately call out your wife? Or would you do what I did? Stay calm, collect evidence, and plan something that would destroy your enemies completely. Let me hear your thoughts in the comments below, because I guarantee some of you would handle this completely differently, and I want to hear those stories. And if you're enjoying this tale of calculated revenge, hit that subscribe button right now, because this channel is all about those moments when the underestimated person turns the tables in the most satisfying way possible. Let's move on. He suggested I might talk to you a lot lately. Man to man, help you understand what she needs. I nodded thoughtfully, as if considering his wisdom. What does she need, Marcus? His smirk widened. Passion, fire, someone who makes her feel alive, not like she's just another item on a to-do list. He set down his glass and crossed his arms, biceps bulging dramatically. Look, Danny, can I call you Danny? I'm not trying to hurt your feelings here, but Serena deserves better than a guy who thinks love is paying bills and changing diapers. The diminutive stung exactly as he had intended. Danny, like I was a child being lectured by an adult. She deserves a real man, he continued, and now there was no mistake in the cruelty in his tone. Someone who can actually satisfy her, in every way. I stood up slowly, watching him tense slightly as if I might actually be stupid enough to try to fight him. Instead, I walked to the coffee maker and poured myself a fresh cup, taking my time with the cream and sugar. You're absolutely right, I said finally, turning back to face him. Serena deserves exactly what she's going to get. Marcus left that morning looking pleased with himself, convinced he'd successfully emasculated me and secured his position as the alpha in this triangle. What he didn't know was that I'd been 3 steps ahead of him since the day I discovered their affair. Forensic accounting isn't just about following money. It's about understanding patterns of behavior, predicting what people will do based on what they've already done, and positioning yourself to catch them when they inevitably overreach. Marcus's pattern was clear. He was a predator who targeted vulnerable married women, used physical intimidation and emotional manipulation to control situations, and had an ego that wouldn't let him walk away from a challenge. He'd done this before. My background check had revealed 3 previous relationships with married clients that had ended in divorces. He specialized in postpartum women because they were emotionally vulnerable and grateful for attention. But Marcus had made one critical error in his assessment of me. He saw a mild-mannered accountant and assumed I was weak. What he failed to understand was that I'd spent nearly 2 decades destroying people professionally, people much smarter and more dangerous than him, and I'd never lost a case. The first phase of my plan was already complete. The evidence was compiled, organized, and stored in multiple locations. Video footage, financial records, DNA evidence collected from our guest bedroom sheets, text messages recovered from Serena's phone during her showers. I had everything needed for a divorce that would leave her with minimal custody and no financial support. But Marcus had made it personal that morning in my kitchen. The taunts, the threats, the deliberate humiliation. He'd escalated this beyond a simple marital dissolution. He wanted to destroy me completely, and that required a more comprehensive response. Phase 2 would be Marcus's professional destruction. I'd already reached out to 3 of his former clients' ex-husbands, and we'd discovered a pattern of behavior that bordered on criminal. One woman had given him access to her husband's business accounts for nutrition supplement purchases that were actually personal expenses. Another had taken out a personal loan to pay for specialized training equipment that never materialized. Marcus was essentially running a long-term con using sex to manipulate vulnerable women into financial schemes. I compiled everything into a comprehensive report and sent it to the New Jersey Attorney General's office, the Better Business Bureau, and his certification board. By the time I was finished, Marcus wouldn't be able to get a job training house cats, let alone vulnerable women. But that was still just the appetizer. The real genius of my plan lay in understanding Marcus's psychology. He was a narcissist who fed on domination and control. Simply exposing his affair wouldn't be enough. He'd probably spin it as a victory, proof of his superior masculinity. I needed him to feel the same helplessness and humiliation he'd tried to inflict on me. So, I gave him exactly what he thought he wanted. 3 days after our kitchen conversation, I moved into a corporate apartment across town, ostensibly devastated by the discovery of the affair. I played the part perfectly. Devastated husband, broken by betrayal, too weak to fight for his marriage. I even let a few mutual friends see me looking disheveled and defeated at the local bar. Marcus and Serena moved their relationship into the open with disgusting speed. Within a week, he was practically living in my house, driving my wife's car, posting social media photos of them playing happy family with my daughter. What they didn't know was that I'd retained the services of Morrison and Associates, the most ruthless divorce firm in the state, and we were building an airtight case for complete custody and financial dissolution. Every day they spent together in my house was another day of evidence that Serena had abandoned her parental responsibilities for an affair partner. But I still needed Marcus to reveal his true nature publicly in a way that couldn't be explained away or denied. So I gave him a stage. The opportunity came when Serena suggested we meet to discuss our future at Russo's, an upscale Italian restaurant where we'd celebrated our anniversary for the past 5 years. She probably thought the sentimental location would give her some advantage, or maybe she just wanted to twist the knife deeper. I arrived first, choosing a table in the center of the dining room where we'd be visible to the maximum number of people. Russo's was a small community, the kind of place where news traveled fast and reputations mattered. Serena arrived 15 minutes late, looking radiant in a way that twisted something deep in my chest. This was the woman I'd planned to grow old with, the mother of my child, and she was practically glowing with the excitement of leaving me for another man. "Daniel," she said, sliding into the seat across from me, "you look tired." "It's been a difficult week," I replied mildly. "I'm sure you can imagine." We ordered drinks and made small talk about Emma, about the weather, about anything except the enormous elephant crushing everything around us. Finally, Serena took a deep breath and launched into what was obviously a prepared speech. "I need you to know that I never intended for this to happen, but Marcus and we found something real together, something I haven't felt in years." I nodded as if I were hearing this for the first time. "I see. He makes me feel alive again, Daniel, passionate, like I'm worth fighting for." Her eyes were bright with conviction, and I almost felt sorry for her. "I know this is painful, but I think if we're honest, we've both been going through the motions for a long time." "Have we?" I asked quietly. "Yes," she said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "And I think, deep down, you know that too. We can co-parent Emma, be friends eventually, but we're not right for each other anymore." I was about to respond when Marcus appeared at our table like a bad stage entrance. This wasn't part of the plan we'd discussed, but it was exactly what I had been hoping for. "Sorry I'm late, babe," he said, sliding into the chair next to Serena and draping his arm around her shoulders possessively. Traffic was brutal. Serena looked mortified. "Marcus, we talked about this. I wanted to handle this conversation alone." "Nah, it's better this way," Marcus said, flagging down our server for a beer. "Danny and I understand each other now, don't we, buddy?" Every conversation in our section of the restaurant had stopped. People were staring openly now, recognizing the drama unfolding at table 12. "Marcus," she hissed under her breath, "please." But Marcus was on a roll, clearly enjoying the public humiliation he was orchestrating. "Look, Danny, I know this is tough for you, but you'll get through it. Guys like you always land on your feet. Find some nice, quiet woman who doesn't need much excitement." I took a sip of my water and waited. "The thing is," Marcus continued, his voice growing louder as he warmed to his audience, "Serena needs a man who can match her energy, someone who isn't afraid to take charge, make decisions, be a leader in the relationship." "Marcus, stop," Serena whispered, but he was beyond listening. "She needs someone who can satisfy her completely," he said, his hand sliding to the back of Serena's neck in a gesture that was unmistakably possessive. "In every aspect of their relationship, someone who has the strength to handle a woman like her." The restaurant was dead silent now. Even the servers had stopped moving. I set down my water glass and looked directly at Marcus. "You mean Someone who can afford to handle a woman like her. His smirk faltered slightly. What's that supposed to mean? I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, turning the screen so both of them could see it. I mean someone who can afford the $2,400 in lingerie charges she's racked up in the past month, the $800 in hotel bills for your training conferences, the $1,200 she spent on dinners and drinks while I've been working late to support our family. Serena's face went white. Marcus's cocky expression was cracking around the edges. See, Marcus, the funny thing about being married to an accountant is that he notices patterns in spending, especially when his wife starts using the credit cards to fund an affair. I swiped to the next screen. Here's another interesting pattern. Every woman you've trained in the past 3 years has experienced unusual financial activity during your relationship. Sarah Mitchell took out a $15,000 personal loan for training equipment that was never delivered. Jennifer Walsh discovered $8,000 in unauthorized charges on her credit cards, all at businesses you frequent. Marcus started to stand up, but I wasn't finished. And then there's your certification, which expired 8 months ago and was never renewed, which means every woman you've trained since then has been paying an unlicensed fraud for services you're not legally qualified to provide. The silence in the restaurant was deafening. Marcus finally found his voice, but it came out as a strangled whisper. You can't prove any of that. I smiled for the first time this evening. Actually, I can. I've been building a case against you for 3 weeks, Marcus. Financial fraud, practicing without a license, theft by deception. The New Jersey Attorney General's office received a very comprehensive report yesterday morning. Now Serena was staring at me like I was a stranger. Daniel, what are you saying? I'm saying that your passionate, fire-filled real man is a con artist who's been using you to steal from our family while he runs the same scam on half the married women in Westfield. Marcus was backing away from the table now, his face flushed with rage and panic. You can't. This is harassment. You're just a bitter husband trying to what? I stood up slowly, and for the first time in this entire nightmare, I felt completely calm. Trying to protect my family from a predator? Trying to expose a fraud who preys on vulnerable women? Yes, Marcus, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a thick manila envelope, setting it on the table between us. These are copies of everything I've sent to the authorities. Financial records, video evidence, testimony from your previous victims. All of it legally obtained, thoroughly documented, and completely admissible in court. Marcus looked at the envelope like it was a bomb. Video evidence. Oh yes, I said. The nanny cam I installed to monitor Emma's sleep patterns captured some very interesting footage. Amazing how clearly you can hear conversations from the guest bedroom. Serena gasped, finally understanding the scope of what I'd discovered. The best part, I continued, my voice never rising above a conversational tone despite the dead silence in the restaurant. Every single one of those videos shows you in my home with my wife, disparaging my parenting and my character while stealing from my family. Juries really don't like that kind of behavior, Marcus. Marcus was practically vibrating with rage now, his hands clenched into fists. You sneaky little bastard. You think you're so smart with your cameras and your spreadsheets, but you're still just a pathetic cuck who couldn't keep his woman satisfied. And there it was. The public meltdown I'd been orchestrating for 3 weeks. Is that really how you want to play this? Here, now, in front of all these witnesses? But Marcus was beyond rational thought. The humiliation, the exposure, the complete destruction of his carefully constructed facade had triggered exactly the kind of narcissistic rage I'd been counting on. You want to know what your wife says about you? He snarled, loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear. She says you're boring in bed, says you couldn't satisfy a woman if your life depended on it, says she fakes it every time just to get it over with.
Serena was crying now, her hands covering her face in mortification. She says Emma probably isn't even your kid, Marcus continued, his voice rising to a shout. Says she was seeing someone else when she got pregnant, but she picked you because you were stupid enough to pay for everything. That last lie was so obviously fabricated that several people in the restaurant actually gasped. But Marcus was too far gone to care about credibility. "So go ahead with your little investigation," he screamed. "At least I'm man enough to satisfy your wife. At least I can make her come for real instead of faking it like she's been doing with your pathetic ass for 12 years. The silence that followed was absolute. I pulled out my phone and stopped the recording app I'd been running since before Serena arrived. "Thank you," I said calmly. "That's going to be extremely helpful in the custody hearing." Marcus left the restaurant at a dead run, followed by the stares and whispers of 50 witnesses who just watched him implode spectacularly. Serena sat frozen at our table, tears streaming down her face, finally understanding that she'd hitched her wagon to a complete fraud. "Daniel, I never said those things about Emma. You have to know I would never—" "I know," I said, and I meant it. Whatever else Serena had done, she loved our daughter completely. The DNA test I ran 3 weeks ago confirmed Emma is mine. Marcus was just saying anything he thought would hurt me. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you let this go on if you knew?" I sat back down across from her, looking at this woman I'd loved for 13 years and would probably love in some way forever. "Because I needed him to show everyone who he really was," I said. "If I'd just exposed the affair, he would have spun it as a love story. Star-crossed lovers, passionate romance, following your heart. But now everyone in town has seen the real Marcus Delacroix, the con artist who preys on vulnerable women and tries to destroy families for sport." Serena was quiet for a long time, processing the magnitude of what had just happened. "What happens now?" she asked finally. I pulled out another envelope, this one containing divorce papers that had been prepared for weeks. "Now you sign these. I get primary custody of Emma. You get supervised visitation until you can prove you're in a stable situation with someone who isn't a criminal. The house stays with me, along with most of our assets, since you've been systematically draining our accounts to fund your affair. And if I refuse, then everything I just gave Marcus gets presented in court, along with about 40 hours of video evidence and testimony from his previous victims. Your affair partner is going to prison. The only question is whether you want to be seen as another victim or as an accomplice." She signed the papers. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my home office, the same room where I'd planned Marcus's destruction, reading the newspaper article about his sentencing. 18 months in state prison, plus restitution to his victims, totaling over $150,000. The judge had been particularly harsh about his predatory behavior toward new mothers. Serena moved back to her sister's place in Pennsylvania and is working as a marketing coordinator for a small firm there. She sees Emma every other weekend, and we're civil for our daughter's sake. She's in therapy now, trying to understand how she fell for someone like Marcus, and I hope it helps her. Emma is walking now, babbling constantly, and completely oblivious to the drama that surrounded her first year of life. She'll grow up knowing that her father fought for her when it mattered, and that sometimes the quiet guy in the corner is the most dangerous person in the room. I never did feel satisfaction from Marcus's destruction, not the way I thought I would. There was no moment of triumph, no surge of vindication, just the quiet recognition that justice had been served and my daughter was safe. But I learned something important about revenge in those months of careful planning. It's not about inflicting pain or evening scores. It's about restoring balance. Marcus had tried to humiliate me because he thought I was weak, thought he could destroy my family without consequences. He was wrong on both counts.
The real power had never been in his muscles or his charm or his ability to manipulate vulnerable people. Real power is in preparation, in patience, and in understanding that every predator eventually overplays their hand if you give them enough rope. I didn't destroy Marcus Delacroix because I was angry or hurt or wanted revenge. I destroyed him because he was a threat to my family, and eliminating threats is what I do for a living. Sometimes being boring isn't a weakness. Sometimes it's exactly what the situation requires. If you loved and enjoyed this story, do not forget to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it. Until our next update, take care.